Today we're going to take a look at Oracle Forms application modernization, and with the help of my friends at PITSS, we're going to take a look at what services they provide, and they're going to give you a little look into how easy it is to actually upgrade from your older Forms versions into some newer versions and potentially onto some other technologies. Let's go ahead and get started. On the screen I have a standard Oracle Safe Harbor statement. It covers some of the background behind what we'll be presenting to you today, and gives you an idea that the information here is strictly for the purposes of this presentation. We may be touching on some information about future products, and we want you to understand that there's no guarantee that any of that information is a guarantee that we'll be having. We will be able to include that information in a future product release. So the program agenda for the day, or at least the hour, we're going to take a look at Oracle's vision, our strategy, and our roadmap for Oracle Forms. We're going to take a look at the past of Oracle Forms, where we are today, and we'll take a quick look into where we might be going into the future. And then we'll move into what your options actually are if you happen to be on an older version. Obviously, you could choose to modernize, upgrade, or potentially migrate onto something else. At that point, I will be passing over to PITSS, where they will be discussing, as I mentioned, what services they provide and how easy it is to get from your older versions of the Forms applications onto the newer ones. Following that, they will do a little demo of their tools and utilities. We'll take a quick look at ADF, and then PITSS will offer a proof of concept option or set of options that are available to you, and then we'll share with you some information about how to get more product information on Forms and the PITSS product, and then we'll have a little short question and answer session. While we're going through the presentation, if you have any questions, go ahead and take advantage of the chat window that's available in the Webcast or web conference tool. We'll do our best to address those as we go, but if there are any that we miss, we'll try to catch them at the end. And then if there's any that we miss entirely, we'll try to catch those privately through email or other means. So as we take a look at Oracle's vision and strategy and roadmap for Forms, one of the first things we wanted to address was this odd rumor that was floating around that the Oracle Forms product was being discontinued. I'd like to clear up right now that that is not even a discussion occurring inside of Oracle. We have some really strong active development going on with the Oracle Forms product, looking out into the future for the next versions. For those of you that are using Forms today and plan on going forward with us, well, we appreciate that, but hopefully you'll get as excited as we are with some of the new features that we're building on into the new versions. In this presentation, we won't be talking too much about those new features, but as we go forward into the year, hopefully we'll cover some of that information, likely as we go later into the year towards the Open World event in San Francisco in September. We'll talk about the clear statement of direction, and what Oracle is preferring that you do coming forward, whether you upgrade or integrate with other products. We'll talk about some of that. And as far as the product goes, with every opportunity we get, we're going to continue to build up onto the Forms product and make some of the JE standards or the Java standards accessible to traditional Oracle developers. When I say traditional, Oracle Forms, PL/SQL, and hopefully that will give you an opportunity to integrate with some of the other products and technologies we have. All right, so let's take a look at the past and where we are today. Well, for anyone that's been around the Forms community for any length of time, you've probably seen this image thousands of times. We've used it for years because it tells a really good story. Some 20, probably 25 years ago, when Forms came onto the marketplace, we were actually in an embedded part of the database. In fact, I believe it was the version 5 of the database, which was a very, very long time ago. We provided the Forms functionality in a character or block mode, typically deployed onto what would have been a dumb terminal at that time. This was long before Microsoft Windows had made it to mainstream. Once that did happen, Microsoft Windows made it mainstream, Oracle realized that it was time to get into the GUI game, and we came up with the client-server model, where we offered you an ability to develop a GUI, a graphical user interface, in front of your application. Coming forward, we realized that web deployment was the modern-day solution, so we followed along and evolved into that, and we now provide you with the ability to deploy your applications in a web-based environment. As for what happens tomorrow, well, we'll just have to see. If you're looking for any information regarding the current statement of direction for Forms and some of the other older developer tools products like Reports and Discover and so on, if you take a look at this white paper that I have shown here on the screen, it'll cover some of that information in a little bit more detail than what I'm providing here. So one of the points we wanted to make clear when we talk about Oracle Forms and its past and its current and its past, present, and future is we wanted to look at the activity that surrounds the product. In roughly 2005, we released version 10 or 10G release 2. And we had some high-level features that were added into the product, not very many, just a few, mostly those to get you integrated into things like single sign-on and provide an improved enterprise manager interface. Thanks to the feedback we received from customers, we understood that the desire to have better integration options was definitely a demand. So we looked at, for example, the JavaScript integration. We improved some of our Java integration support. We added support for database proxy users, integration with Oracle Diagnostic Logging to make your troubleshooting tasks much easier, and so on. If we go further and you take a look at version 11 release 2, you can see the list continues to get longer with each new release. We're listening, and we hear that our customers have a desire to see new features, improved diagnostic features, improved performance features, and improved look and feel features. And you can see with each new release, we're building some steam. So let's take a look at where we're going. As I mentioned, the next release, and honestly we don't even know what it will be called at this point. I will only assume that it'll probably be called something like 12C to follow the rest of the line that we have in the Fusion middleware family. We're in very, very early stages of development. And again, these are some of the high-level features we're planning on including. For example, if you're not already aware of it, we include support already for Oracle Virtual Assembly Builder that was added in version 11 release 2, but we're going to look at improving some of that as we go into the next release. We obviously will pick up new versions of Java certifications for both the client and the server side, depending upon what's available at the time. As many of you have asked for, we will pick up some new operating systems, which we currently don't have. I'm talking about for certification. We plan on making some builder changes. That's kind of something new. We haven't done that in a while. We're going to go ahead and see if we could get some changes into the builder, kind of improve on it just a little bit. We're looking at several new applet parameters to enhance runtime behavior. Hopefully those will give you a little bit more of that look and feel you've been looking for and functionality. And one of the bigger features that we're focusing on in this next release will revolve around security. Some of those features will probably include the ability for the developer to take control over some of the security around their application, where now you're kind of relying on whatever infrastructure you put around it, for example, single sign-on. This will give you the ability to programmatically control some of what's going on in those outside areas. So there's a lot of good stuff coming. Hopefully over the next few months or so, we'll be able to provide some more details on what those features consist of, and maybe we'll get the party started. So let's move on. So we know where we came from, we know where we are, and we kind of have an idea of where we're going. So what do we do? Well, our first suggestion from Oracle's point of view is we want to get you upgraded to the current versions, and there's a whole bunch of reasons to do that. By default, as you upgrade, you automatically are going to modernize your application. But more importantly, as you upgrade, you're going to take advantage of bug fixes that are included in the product, security vulnerability fixes, and most importantly, the new features. As we go into those newer versions, for example, version 11, we've obviously improved the ability to integrate with other products and external events. UI modernization is another option, whether you stay on the old versions or whatever version you may be on, or even move to the current version, which I recommend. Either one can take advantage of various user interface modernizations. And finally, your last option is to just abandon the whole thing and move away from forms and choose to move to another technology. So let's take a look at some of these a little bit more in depth. So upgrading. Well, for those of you that are on versions older than 11, you have two options as far as upgrading goes. The current two releases are 11GR1, which is 11.1.1, or 11G Release 2, which is 11.1.2. In the 11G Release 2 installation, not only are you going to pick up new features, there's also some new installation options, which I think a lot of people will appreciate and benefit from, specifically the fact that we've created a much smaller footprint as part of that installation, both in disk space and system resources. So Release 2 definitely offers some interesting advantages over the previous one. For those of you that are coming from a web already deployed Forms application, in other words, you're version 9 or newer or version 6 running against application server 1, the upgrade process is fairly simple. If you're already web-based and you're upgrading to web-based, it's pretty straightforward. For those of you that are client server, in other words, version 6 or older, and you want to move to version 11, that process is also pretty straightforward. However, there are some manual steps involved. There's a little bit of effort involved, a little bit of understanding involved. But fortunately, it is a well-understood and a well-documented process. Our friends at PITSS are going to shortly explain to you what they could offer to make that process much easier for you. But as I mentioned, one of the greatest reasons to upgrade to the latest version is obviously on the current version, you'll have the access to Oracle support, bug fixes, and so on and so forth. You'll pick up new certifications as we make them available, and of course with each new release we provide any security vulnerability fixes which may have been created during the process. So exploiting new features. Well, when we come into the new versions, you have the option of taking your old application, upgrading it to the current application, and making the decision. Do I want to leave my application alone or do I want to modernize it? Do I want to take advantage of the new features that this new version offers? In some ways, you'll automatically pick up some of the new features. For example, I mentioned features like ODL, Oracle Diagnostic Logging. You will automatically gain that functionality by upgrading. So in that particular example, you have the benefit of picking up some better troubleshooting tools, some better administrative tools, and you can then make the choice, do I want to now also take advantage of the ease in upgrading the look and feel of my application? So on this slide, you can see that there's some examples that we've already shown of new features. I'm not going to go through all of them, but they are certainly features that you should try to consider. We'll take a look at some of these in a little more detail in a second. So when we talk about integrating with the outside world, what we're referring to is features like the ability to call out to web services, the ability to use JavaScript to interact with a web page. If you take a look at most of today's web-based applications, they heavily use JavaScripting or AJAX or some other similar technology. Now with Forms 11, you can interact with that technology. So from within your Forms application, you could talk out to the surrounding web page that launched it. Just the same, you could launch other browsers, other applications, or whatever other technology you want from either the client side or the server side. And that's actually a great way to modernize your application, because if you have an ability or a staff that is in the process of, for example, moving to ADF, you could do a phased approach upgrade or migration and have both applications talk to each other. And that's generally a good approach. It's a safe approach. So let's continue on. As I mentioned, UI modernization, you can take advantage of that regardless of what version you're on. However, in the newer versions, in the web-based versions, you have the ability to leverage some of the Java functionality that's out there. For example, with Java Beans, you have the ability to create your own UI objects. So, for example, if you don't like the way an Oracle Forms text field works, you could create your own. Or if there's some particular Java object that doesn't exist in the Forms library, you could, again, create your own and drop it right in your form. PJCs, or pluggable Java components, allow you to take the existing Forms objects, again, using a text field as an example. If you don't like the way it currently works and you want to make it prettier, maybe you want round corners on it instead of it being square, or you want to change some functionality in it, using a pluggable Java component is the way to go there. I will say that there are just an endless number of examples out there on the web, so if you don't have a strong Java team on your staff, that's okay. Like I said, there's plenty of examples out there that you could work from. You don't have to learn a whole new language from scratch. We've got a lot of people in the Forms community doing a lot of good work for us, and they're all willing to share. As I mentioned, JavaScript is available to you in the newer versions as well, and I say newer versions, again, version 11. With JavaScript, you could either take advantage of your own functionality to call out from the Forms application into the web page that launched it, or again, you could take advantage of its ability to communicate into other applications that are leveraging JavaScript. So again, whether it's ADF or Apex or pick your product of choice, Forms will now have a much easier ability to communicate with some of those other products and applications. So what do we do? Do we migrate? Do we rewrite? What do we do? Probably you have a million questions on your mind. This slide, again, if any of you have ever seen these presentations before, this slide was actually created by Grant Ronald, who was the previous Forms product manager. And he made some very good points here, and I asked him if I could borrow this slide because it does definitely follow a common set of questions that I think our customers are asking. And one of the biggest questions is that very first one on the top. What are your business drivers? Making a decision to leave an infrastructure that's been in place for many years is a difficult decision to make. If you have a Forms application that your company has had for many, many years, simply abandoning it and moving away is going to be very difficult to do. It's going to be costly and it's going to be time-consuming, and it's a tough decision to make. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but they're very likely a large number of you have many of these questions in your mind, and I think before you make any decisions to migrate, upgrade, or do anything else, you need to consider all those questions before making that first move. So let's take a look at what options you have with regard to migration or rewriting. It's not uncommon that I've heard customers say, well, let's just throw it all away and we'll start from scratch. Well, as I mentioned a minute ago, that probably isn't the greatest plan in the world. If your application is fairly large, rewriting from scratch is going to be an enormous undertaking and take an enormous amount of time and probably be very expensive. And also important to think about is, why are you migrating? If the application already meets your business needs and maybe just needs a little bit of a facelift, then obviously that seems to be the way to go. Coming onto the latest version gives you, like I said, that ability to integrate with other products and technologies. Getting a facelift is far simpler than throwing everything away and starting over. As I mentioned earlier, a hybrid coexistence approach probably will be your best way to go if you do make the decision to leave Forms. By transitioning off in phases, obviously you don't have to throw everything away, start from scratch, and have nothing while you're waiting on the new application to be developed. Or just the same, you don't have to have two completely strong development projects going on at the same time. You can do little by little and work them in together and have them coexist and share the strengths of each other as you go forward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass over to PITSS, and they're going to share with you some details behind what we're talking about here, about upgrading or migrating and such. And I think what's most interesting, and I don't think they were expecting me to say this, but what's most impressive about what they're going to show you that I seem to feel is that their tools are actually built with Oracle Forms. And if you take a close look at them as you're sitting back wondering about what modernization options do I have, take a look at their UI. I think they've done a great job on it, and I think they deserve a lot of credit for that. So with that, what I'd like to do is switch over.
My name is Jason Mara, and I am Director of Sales for PITSS. With me today, I have two colleagues that will be involved in the presentation. One, Patrick Walter, is our technical manager, also an Oracle Forms and Reports expert. And I also have Gavin Woods, who is an ADF consultant for PITSS and of course, an expert as well. So let me just give you all a brief PITSS company profile, brief background on what's happening with PITSS, and I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Patrick at this time. So PITSS, our company, we've been around for quite some time, founded back in 1999. And what we're doing, we're a software and service provider specializing in all areas of Oracle development tools. So all areas meaning modernization, so upgrades, migration, development work, enhancement work, maintenance work. So really anything around that we specialize in, and it's all we're doing on a day-to-day basis. So Forms and ADF is our game. We also specialize in the infrastructure of these tools, so Fusion middleware infrastructure, so setting up, configuring WebLogic servers, Forms and Reports servers, Oracle Access Manager, single sign-on. So a lot of things that I'll get to later in the presentation, but these are the technologies that we're working with on a day-in, day-out basis. Our world headquarters is out of Stuttgart, Germany. Our U.S. operations is headed up in Troy, Michigan. We are recently expanded into the Latin American regions as well, so we have partners managing PITSS activities in Mexico and Brazil. Some Oracle alliances that you see here, we're an Oracle Gold partner. We are part of the Oracle Modernization Alliance. In fact, we are the only Oracle Forms partner that's part of this group. And Inc. magazine actually honored us recently as one of the fastest growing companies in America. And one more thing I want to highlight, we are a partner of DLT Solutions, so anyone on this webcast that's working within the public sector, no fear, we're on GSA schedule and we are on various state contracts as well. So again, I want to thank everyone for taking the time today, but I will now pass it off to my colleague, Patrick Walter.
Thank you, Jason. I also want to thank Michael for the good introduction of our tool, PITSS.CON, and I want to take this ball and actually play it for a short time and to introduce you to our tool. We had one customer that actually recognized that he said that this tool is a tool from Forms developers for Forms developers. So it's developed in Forms by developers, and we put like a complete life cycle management around Oracle Forms, from source control over Forms development to help you doing math changes, over a tool doing visual designs for zooming, screen resolutions, but also changes the screen design with Java applicable components, Java Beans, to help you to improve the look and feel of your Forms application a little bit. We also provide dynamic multi-language tools. So if you go your factory to China, so it provides your application to run in English or in Chinese or Russian, whatever language you need, and you can change the language in runtime. Part of what I'm going to talk today in a little bit more deepness is application impact, application analysis, to show you the ability to analyze your Forms application, to understand your legacy Forms application that you have out there for maybe 20, 15, 10 years, and work with, developed it, changed it, and the documentation functionality of PITSS.CON. One of our tools also is our SOA suite, or application engineering, that helps you to integrate Oracle Forms into a service-oriented architecture to analyze the business logic and then move the business logic to a place where it can be used from any technology. Of course, we are very big in modernization. This is where PITSS.CON actually stands for, PITSS Converter. And we started with upgrade, and this is what we've done the last 10 years, almost on a daily basis. This is very proven by us that we can do it, and it's a very proven process that we integrated into the tool. But we also worked in the last years on the migration to ADF, to Java, and on a migration to Apex, and everything in the the Oracle tools that are available, Oracle technologies that are available. Our latest module into PITSS.CON is source code analytics that gives you key performance indicators, that gives you information about how many objects are used in your application, where they are used, and also shows you a complexity of your forms, how complex specific program units are. Some keywords are like the cyclomatic complexity, host volume, and also maintainability index that gives you an overview if a program unit or application is maintainable or not, or hard or easy to maintain. And the last part is our source control, where we also offer source control for your application to keep track, well, change management and so on. But now let's go into the development or the modernization upgrade process. I like to start with the upgrade because that's what we're doing in the last 10 years on a daily basis. And we actually automated the forms upgrade from any earlier version, like from 2.3, 3.0, up to the latest version. Right now, 11G release 2, and we automated it by 95%. More or less, it depends always on the application, but it's highly automated. We already have like over 200 predefined templates. You see here a little list of them that we take care about critical functions, we take care about obsolete functions, and we actually make a complete analysis over everything that you need to consider for an upgrade. And with the output, you can create a very precise project plan and can do a very precise estimation to control the time and cost in your project. After we've upgraded, we provide a modernization process. For us, it's always important that you stay on the latest version of Oracle Forms. And when you're on the latest version, then you can decide actually which direction you like to go. It's like staying with Forms, or maybe go to ADF Java or Apex, or to integrate ADF Java into your Forms application. And then Woods later will talk about it, how to integrate, for example, ADF into a Forms application. The steps to modernize your application starts at analysis. So it's very important to understand what's inside of your application, what are the dependencies inside of your application, probably also to rebuild a documentation, reverse document your application, because of 20 years old Forms application that I have seen in the past, there exists no documentation, or usually if there's a documentation, it's 10 or 15 years old. Nobody updated it in the meantime. With our tool PITSS.CON, we can provide you an online documentation that is always up to date. You just have to load your latest modules into the PITSS.CON repository, and it provides you a documentation. Where is the table used? Where is the program unit used? What does a Forms module uses? And I will show you later a short live demonstration about this ability. The next step would be then to analyze the dead code objects to remove code that is not used, because this is you carry around, makes the application harder to maintain, especially if you need to find an error or a bug just to make sure that you're not looking into any dead code. It also reduces the amount of modules, libraries, for example, that you don't need to carry around anymore if they're maybe not attached. Next step, what we're doing is analyzing redundant objects. So we are looking actually for program units that contain similar or same logic. And then we provide strategies on how to combine these modules, these program units together into one program unit. Our automatic replacement mass change in PITSS.CON actually provides also the change inside of the form of the calling of these program units, and then you have the ability to move this one program unit to a library, for example, if it controls the user interface, or this program unit has a business logic included, you can move also this program unit to the database and call it from there. The last step, what we're doing in the modernization process, is then integrating the Forms application into a service-oriented architecture. And For that case, what we're proposing is analyzing your forms application for business logic. Where is business logic in your application? And move the business logic to the database as a first step. When you have the business logic in the database, for example, you can put a web service on top of the business logic and then actually provide any technology like Java, ADF, or HTML5 application. Your application from your iPad can then access this web service, and you can utilize and reuse the same functionality on any technology. Let's show you a little bit what PITSS.CON is able to give you for complexity analysis inside of your forms application. And this is just a fraction, actually, what information we can provide you with our tool. The time for the webinar we have here actually is not enough to show you everything we are able to provide you. So this would be, if you're interested, we can provide you a second webinar on just the analysis. But for example, here you get a flow chart where the forms actually called and what the dependencies between forms modules. And we actually show you what the dependencies are and can print out actually a nice chart where you see all the dependencies and references inside of your application. The second step is we recognized in the past on our unused objects analysis that we can reduce around 50% of the lines of code inside of your application, and that, or 15 to 20% code reduction we can have inside of your application. So if you're having any modernization process, that reduces around 50% of the effort what you do if you have to migrate everything. To reduce the redundant objects, again, is a reduction of a 10% effort in your application, in your modernization process, because everything what you combined into one place, you just have to rewrite it or redesign it or bug fix it, whatever the task is, into one place and not in 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 places and more. And the last, and I think a very important step is to preserve your investment. Business logic that you have inside of your forms application, you developed it for the last 10, 15, 20 years. And if you need to rewrite it because you want to replace the application, for example, with Java, or you figure out that you need to have the same functionality as in your form also in your iPad application, and instead of rewriting it again, you can move the business logic to the database and actually preserve your investment and reuse it then in any other technology. And also reduces an average of 15% of effort. So our idea on integrating forms into a service-oriented architecture is actually taking the business logic and moving it to the database. Common forms application has the business logic stored inside of the form, and what we're doing is we're putting the business logic into a business logic layer into the database. We also provide an assistant to create a data access layer assistant that creates an API to your tables, and the form just then accesses the API. If it's necessary, for example, that you have the same validation on your form or on a HTML5 application that just accesses the web service to enter data, to read data, then you can also use our data access layer assistant to do this. Let's go into a short live demonstration about our tool PITSS.CON, and therefore I want to show you a short thing about application analysis, and especially the module summaries. It's a kind of our online documentation. I will just open unused object analysis shortly to show you what we can do. We can talk about redundant object analysis just as an example, and also show you the business logic assistant, how to find business logic, how to identify business logic. Okay, we're in application analysis, and our module summary shows you an overview about all objects that are actually used inside of this form. So, for example, you get a list of all global variables that are used inside of the form, about PL/SQL libraries that are attached, and also the program units that are used inside of this form. We also have all database objects that are used inside of a form. Functions, packages, sequences, tables. If a table has a update, insert, or delete statement, we also show you the triggers that execute it, and of course we show you the views. If you're interested, for example, where is the specific object used inside of your form, you have the ability to right-click, search for global variable, and then it shows you it's used inside of this when button press trigger, it's used inside the then radio change trigger, and so on. And you also get an option that shows you the syntax and where it's used in that specific trigger, in which context it's used. The next thing I like to show you is the unused object analysis. We have unused object analysis. Actually, we can analyze forms, field SQL libraries, menus, object libraries, and database objects. And what we're doing is we're also going on the package detail. And for example, for migration from forms to ADF, we also analyze null objects because you don't need to transfer a trigger that's doing nothing, for example, in an ADF application. In the Business Logic Assistant, we combine our redundancy analysis and our analysis for business logic. So for example, when you can select any program unit, right-click on it, and say Find Similar Objects. And Find Similar Objects then provides you the option to search inside of your application in forms modules, libraries, menus, reports, database objects, and you can set some comparing rules. So it finds similar objects inside of your application, and we do not compare line by line. We really compare objects that are used inside of the program unit. So for example, we check SQL statements, so we see if are the same tables used, and if you check the details, do the same inside, update, delete, select statements, do they have the same workload? Check called objects, we're looking for the same statements that are executed. Packages, same packages called, same procedures are called, with the same parameters, or at least the same type of parameters. We are checking are the same direct assignments, they are logic assignments, and do we have the same return values. And then at the end, we provide a threshold that you can say, please just show me everything that's maybe by 70% the same, or 80%, 90%, or up till 100%. So this is our similar object analysis. To do business logic analysis, to analyze where is business logic, what we do is we actually provide you with a list of all program units, and we analyze them for SQL statements, we analyze them for built-ins, we analyze them for internal calls. We have a program unit, internal forms program unit called. And with this analysis, we actually can identify which program units can be moved very easy to the database. So for example, if you have a program unit with 3 or 4 SQL statements and no built-ins and no internal calls, you usually can take it one by one and move it direct to the database. So, and we also provide you with a filter that, for example, says, please show me all program units that have SQL statements. We do this because we think SQL statements are usually around, where business logic is usually around SQL statements. So when you have a select statement, usually afterwards you do something with the data. If you have an insert or update statement, usually you did something with the data. And then we also can say, okay, now please filter everything down so that I know exactly which program unit I could take one by one, like this one, and move them direct to the database. So when everything here is green, it means this is a candidate to move to the database. Of course, still, administrator has to go in there, or a developer has to go in there and actually check if this really might make sense to move to the database. But if he says this is okay and this is how it looks in forms, this is how the package feature then would look like, and you say, okay, this is good, we take it this way, PITSS.CON provides you with an automatic assistant transfer object to DB, so we will create a package and then actually you can move to the database, and we will also provide you with an assistant to change the call inside of your forms Good. So this was actually my presentation about the tool. It just gave a little glance into it so you can get a good understanding what our tool is about. It's about analysis, about Oracle Forms. It's about understanding your Forms application, doing math changes. In this case, it's really a tool that helps you to understand your application, to modernize your application, and make tasks that you probably never thought before in your developer's life to do. And with this end, I like to pass on to Gavin.
So the reengineering process described by Patrick is a way to open your application to new possibilities. And really what I'm getting at is, for example, when you have your business logic accessible on a database and open up as through web services, you can really open up to other technology bases. And really what that means is you can essentially enhance your Forms applications with a framework that looks more like this. Oracle ADF, Oracle Application Development Framework, or ADF for short. Now, ADF is a beautifully designed framework with a developer productivity and platform versatility in mind. Now, most people may think that you need to go one way or another, stick with Forms, or migrate entirely to ADF. But really, it depends upon the business drivers. And we actually find that for a lot of organizations, you really can have a hybrid application running both Forms and ADF technologies. Now, what you can really do is, to do that, you can enhance your applications and really empower your business, because one of the key features of ADF is platform versatility. And you see in the next slide here, on the top half, you can actually run ADF on a multitude or different platforms. So for instance, you can run applications on PC web browsers or on native PC desktop applications. You can also build and run applications on mobile devices, and you can also integrate with Microsoft Office products. Now, if you look on the bottom half, this is where it comes to interacting with other data sources and applications. And really, the amount of possibilities are unlimited. Like, for instance, you can interact with almost any database with ADF, so any SQL 92 compliant database. Or if you're looking at the reengineering process where you migrate your Forms application, the business logic to the database, and build web services, well, ADF works beautifully with the SOA architecture. Now, you can also integrate with mature systems like Oracle Forms applications. Now, one of the more popular choices, however, is to really run on the web through the PC or as native mobile applications. Let's take a look at the web. Now, the power of ADF through the web is really the ADF faces components. And why it's so powerful is that it lets you build a rich application and AJAX-enabled components to really build a rich user interface that can run completely within the browser. Now, as I was mentioning before, you can build and run applications on mobile devices. Now, this product that we call is ADF Mobile. It's a simple add-on into ADF JDeveloper. Now, the advantage here is that you can actually empower your developers to use the same IDE and the similar development process to build both PC, web, and mobile applications, really without even needing to be trained in the mobile device's development platform. And with respect to that, you can actually build native iOS applications, native Android apps, or even just apps that run within the mobile device's browser. Now, as Mike Ferrante was mentioning earlier, you can actually integrate 11G Forms with almost any other process that you may have or any other software or application you might have. Now, the main idea is to allow you to seamlessly integrate rich ADF applications with Forms so that you can effectively enhance or extend your applications. And just here are some examples up top here. You can actually have ADF invoke Forms logic, or you can have Forms invoke ADF logic. Or maybe you actually want to generate a child or complement ADF screen or application to extend your application's functionality. And one example could be building a mobile interface for your application. Or another example could be just building the ADF portal to run ADF apps and Forms apps together. And as for the last example, and very commonly done, is launching Forms applications from within ADF, or vice versa, where you launch ADF from the Forms applications. So you say, okay, that sounds great, but what does ADF development really look like? Well, ADF is developed through IDE called JDeveloper. Now, while you can build standard Java objects and code away at Java, you can actually utilize JDeveloper's visual and declarative approach to development, thus saving you time and really not coding everything in Java. Another great thing is, JDeveloper offers you just one IDE for multiple platforms. So you can build ADF mobile apps, desktop apps, or web applications, all within the same IDE. Now, I was mentioning earlier about integrating Forms and ADF applications. You may be wondering what examples we may have. Well, we have one example, the DTE Energy, a utility provider to Metro Detroit and neighboring areas and states. Now, DTE provides a lot of their electricity through coal-burning plants. Well, the most effective way to deliver coal to these plants is to deliver them by train. So thus, DTE actually built a Forms application to properly manage and schedule all of their coal trains. Now, they only had two ways of scheduling these trains. A web calendar application built in Java long ago, which didn't really work, or they actually had to use paper and pencil to schedule the coal trains. Now, we said we can not only replace this web calendar application, but we can also provide an improved user interface through ADF and integrate it with your local Forms application. Now, after we showed off a quick demo, DT was ready to sign up. Now, after that, DT came back to us with some requirements that you see listed here on the slide. I'll go through them real quick. So the first option, or the first requirement, was to have train coordinators use the Forms application to create train configurations and schedule them. Now, the second was to actually open up an ADF calendar to be opened up securely and authenticate from the Forms application into ADF. Now, third, ADF calendar itself needed to have a rich user interface. So that really meant having functionality like drag and drop, or even just updating. And really, the most important part was to, when a user wants to see more details on a train, all they do is just simply select the train, and the ADF application actually calls back the Forms and tells it to query and load the master detail form. And of course, lastly but not least, the last requirement was to have the ADF calendar accessible on mobile devices. And so really, after all that, we completed all development work just within a couple of weeks. It was very quick and easy to do. And really, to build on that, just for some key takeaways, if you're migrating a Forms application to ADF, if that's really not an option, but you're considering of maybe enhancing or extending, really just consider utilizing ADF and Forms integration. And the benefits are tremendous. I mean, because not only will you enjoy developing with ADF, you'll actually get your business users to love ADF as well and have them craving for more. Now, that's just what happened in DTE, and after this small project, they actually now want to expand more into ADF. So really, overall, ADF is a great complement to Oracle Forms. So if you're interested in more in the technology or integration itself, feel free to contact us, and as we have an entire presentation just on this subject. So now I will go ahead and turn over to Jason.
Thank you, Gavin. This is Jason Mara again. I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up from the PITSS side. So we've learned a lot of interesting things today. I think what's really important to take note is what the actual roadmap is for Forms and Reports customers that protect, extend, evolve message. So again, the first thing that everyone should be doing is making sure you're running in a supported environment. So upgrade to 11G. That should be the first thing on everyone's mind. And then once you're there and running that 11G application now on the WebLogic server, you've really opened up to different possibilities like integration with ADF, ADF Mobile, integration with other systems, other functionality within the Fusion middleware suite. So really the first thing, again, upgrade to 11G and start extending, start doing some new things within Fusion middleware, and then evolve as the last phase. again, is summarizing the PITSS.CON benefits for forms and reports customers, and this is the topics that Patrick was going over, including the demonstration there. Again, since the late 90s, PITSS.CON has a tremendous reputation for being able to automate Oracle Forms and Reports upgrades very quickly. So it's really a no-brainer to use PITSS.CON for those kind of things. So the time and cost is uncomparable to any other type of solution. So like I said, the standard upgrade from, let's say, even 6i to 11g can be accomplished in 4 days using PITSS.CON, no matter how many forms and reports you have. The cost compared to doing that upgrade versus a manual approach or hiring an outside consulting agency, again, it just does not compare. So it's really a no-brainer for the upgrade at least, but then all the ongoing benefits it gives you even after the upgrade are tremendous. So ongoing use there, using it for all of your day-to-day activities, for impact analysis, for analyzing different types of change requests, mass search and replace, the documentation, the list goes on. You can use it to optimize your application by cleaning it up, identifying unused objects, redundant objects, and then even using it for future-proofing your application, if you will, by giving you that re-engineering functionality to extract business logic. And then finally, we even have the ability to migrate forms to ADF. Now, this is on the PITSS.CON side, which is, of course, very strong. But then we have a great service offering as well, which is listed here. I'm not going to go through all this in detail. Everyone should get a copy of this slide deck after the webinar. But you see, we really focus on Oracle Fusion Middleware Infrastructure Consulting. So WebLogic Server Installation Configurations for Forms and Reports, ADF, integrating SSL, Oracle Access Manager installation for SSO. So these are new topics to the Oracle Forms community, which we have the expertise to perform for you and also train you as well. So Oracle Forms ADF Consulting, if you have a new development project that you need assistance with, ADF mobile application, as Gavin highlighted, that is something as well that's becoming very popular with among our customers, as well as the trainings that you see below there. A quick reference here, a case study, Men's Warehouse, a great customer of ours. This case study is actually on Oracle's website, on the Oracle Forms homepage. Men's Warehouse had an application, their tuxedo rental application, which is used in more than 1,200 stores and has more than 7,000 end users. This application was built on Forms and Reports 6i, and it was running on that version. That's when we engaged them. They had the requirement, of course, to upgrade to 11g, then deploy on WebLogic, and they, of course, purchased PITSS.CON, worked with us. We were able to do the standard upgrade in just a few short days. We actually did a lot more there. We helped them with the infrastructure, like I said, the WebLogic implementation. But one step further, we made their application multilingual as well. So for the Canadian stores, they had the requirement to make them in French, the application. So with PITSS.CON, again, we were able to automate the translations from English to French without having to create multiple forms. So we have actually more than 450 customers worldwide. So if anyone's interested, I can always put you in touch with different references, share different case studies like this. Now, lastly, some different proof of concept options. We are confident, extremely confident in what PITSS.CON can provide customers and what it does. We know it works, and we're confident in our service offerings as well. So for an upgrade to 11g, we'd be able to offer you something that no one else can, and that's a free proof of concept workshop working on your entire application. Example, let's say you're running an application on Forms and Reports 6i. Say you have 500 forms. We would be willing to come on site for 3 to 5 days at no cost, upgrade your entire application to 11g, do a great pilot on the other PITSS.CON modules using your objects, of course, and basically let you make a decision after this workshop is completed whether you want to work with us or not. So it's a complete no-risk solution for you, but it allows you to make a decision with confidence that you know you're acquiring a solution that is proven and works. On the ADF side, if you're looking to migrate forms to ADF, you have that requirement. So we have a detailed agenda for this type of proof of concept workshop. Typically, it's only on 2 to 3 form modules, as there's the level of effort to go to ADF compared to just upgrading an application to 11g is quite different. So, but during this engagement, we can do an analysis on the entire application. We can present you with a complete level of effort of what the migration time would be. We can go through the analysis and re-engineering steps on these selected forms. We can generate ADF user interface. We even go through the fine-tuning steps with you as well. So the bottom line is you're making a decision based on facts and not things that you've heard from others. Lastly, I wanted to share this slide with you, ODTUG Kscope. For those of you that do not know, ODTUG, which stands for Oracle Developer Tools User Group, so this is the user group that's dedicated to Oracle development tools. Obviously, you see the topics there on the left. They have their major conference once a year. This year, it's in New Orleans, June 23rd through 27th. We'll be there as we are every year. We have some great presentations scheduled for this week, as well as our friends within the ODTUG community do as well. So if you are going, or if you'd like to go, you can register with PITSS. You see to the top left there, PITSS is the code, and you'll receive a discount on your registration. Lastly, here's my contact info. Please contact us with any questions. If you're interested in seeing a deeper demo on PITSS.CON, or interested in Gavin's ADF/Forms integration work with DTE Energy, or any questions at all involving forms, reports, ADF, these kind of things, please call us. Let us know. We'd love to talk to form shops.